السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We begin as always and ever by praising Allah Azza wa Jal for the many blessings that He has given us, and shukr, or expression of gratitude, alhamdulillah, is something that is done, it's supposed to be done, expected from us continuously, because every single breath that we take is a ni'mah, it's a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal. Even our obedience to Allah is one of the greatest blessings in ni'mah, the blessing of Iman, the blessing of Islam. This is one of the greatest blessings that Allah can bestow upon His creation. And our ability to wake up and come for Fajr today is also one of the blessings of Allah. So we should not attribute or ascribe all these good deeds that we do to ourselves and feel good. We should be feeling grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal and expressing our gratitude, alhamdulillah, for allowing us to gather today and perform our prayers, Fajr prayers in Jama'ah. And now we are here to listen a short talk about some parts of the Qur'an. We're discussing about the first juz of the Qur'an, inshallah, today. And first juz is part of the second surah in the Qur'an, Surah Al-Baqarah. Now the Surah Al-Baqarah, according to one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَنَامٌ وَسَنَامُ الْقُرْآنِ Al-Baqarah. For everything there is a peak, and the peak of Qur'an is Al-Baqarah. And why is Al-Baqarah the peak of Qur'an? It's the longest surah in the Qur'an. It's 286 ayat. Just like anything, any peak, if you climb to the highest peak in an area, you get to see an overview of everything around you. And that is what Surah Al-Baqarah is to the rest of the Qur'an. If you manage to conquer, master, or climb over Surah Al-Baqarah, you read and you understand Surah Al-Baqarah, you get an overview of almost everything in the Qur'an. Almost every aspect of Islam is discussed in one way or another, either in detail or in brief, in Surah Al-Baqarah. And something interesting in Surah Al-Baqarah, when it comes to vocabulary, about 70 to 80% of Quranic vocabulary, there are tens of thousands of words in the Quran, and 12,000 of them in the Arabic language, and 12,000 of them are used in the Quran. And 70% of those words can be found in Surah Al-Baqarah. So if you were to understand, memorize and understand every single word in Surah Al-Baqarah, you would have understood at least 70% of the Quranic vocabulary. You may not be able to understand the Quran fully, because to understand a language, you need to understand its grammar. And with Arabic especially, it's a very grammar-sensitive language. But at least you won't be sleeping when someone is reciting Quran. You won't be wondering when you pray, especially in Taraweeh, why can't the Imam go faster? Because there's no point. Either he recites beautifully or recites quickly. To me, it makes no difference because I don't understand it anyway. So better fast than slow. But if you understand Surah Al-Baqarah, if you can master Surah Al-Baqarah, then you would appreciate, at least when you pick up keywords, this is what this surah is talking about, this is what this ayah is talking about, this is what the Imam is reading about. Then it helps you in focusing and transforming the quality of your prayers. And you might say, come on Azizi, Surah Al-Baqarah, can't I do Surah Al-Ikhlas or Surah Al-Kawthar? No, this is 286 ayat. But come on, 286 ayat, if you take one ayah a day, then in less than a year, you have memorized the whole surah. 286 days, in less than a year. And we are in the new year of the Islamic calendar, probably a good year to start your resolution. This year, it's going to be Surah Al-Baqarah. Every day, pick up the Quran, do one ayah, look at the translation. If you have harfiyah, the word for word translation, study the words, memorize, commit the meaning to your memory, and then move on. Every day, just one ayah a day, and you'll see how things will change. Because our relationship with the Quran is not just about reciting it. Our relationship with the Quran goes beyond simple reading. And our relationship with the Quran is explained by Allah Azza wa Jal through the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which we read in the first juz, in Surah Al-Baqarah. رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. This dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam explains our relationship with the Quran. Ibrahim alayhi salam, upon building the Kaaba, he made dua to Allah Azza wa Jalla. He said, رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. Oh my Master, our Master sent to them a messenger from among them. So within the people of Makkah send one messenger. And what is the duty of this messenger? يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. This messenger is supposed to recite to them, basically recite to us, your ayat. And so this is the first step in our relationship with the Qur'an, which is recitation. So you'll need to learn how to recite the Qur'an properly. And I don't see Arab faces, so most of us are not Arabs. So probably we'll find learning how to recite the Qur'an, maybe it's going to be a bit difficult. There are letters that doesn't exist in our language. Malays, Indonesians, there are letters like Dad, like Ain, like those, that doesn't exist in our language. So it becomes a bit difficult for us to pronounce. But we have to make the effort to learn to pronounce it like it is pronounced, as it is, because Qur'an is revealed in the Arabic tongue. Now you might say that, this is going to be difficult. But if it's difficult, it's okay, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised that those who find Qur'an study difficult, but they push through anyway. Those who struggle with the Qur'an study, وَمَا يَتَتَعْتَعْ فِيهِ فَلَهُ أَجْرًا. You get double reward, just because of your effort of learning, because it's going to be hard. So the first relationship is يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ, reciting the Qur'an. So we need to learn how to recite the Qur'an with tartil. You need to know the makhraj of each letter. Where is the point of articulation for each letter? Where do you place your tongue? And how do you shape your mouth when you pronounce each letter? And then you also need to learn the tajweed. Where do you elongate? Where is the second 2 harakat, the 4 harakat, the 5 harakat? These are things that you need to learn in order to learn how to read the Qur'an. As Qur'an, Allah says, وَرَتَّلْنَا الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. And when we recite the Qur'an to you with tartil. When Ibn Abbas was asked the meaning of tartil, he said that tartil is giving each letter its right. So you have to study the rights of each letter in the Qur'an. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. And then teaching them. Prophet ﷺ will be teaching us the content, the kitab, the law, the content of what Allah has revealed. When it comes to ta'lim, this is where understanding comes into play. That we need to understand what we are reading. Because if you don't understand, then what are you learning? And Qur'an is not just revealed as a recitation. It's not just something that we recite. Allah answers our prayer. Every prayer, 17 times a day, we ask from Allah Azza wa Jal, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. We ask Allah show us the straight path. And Allah answered this prayer of ours just on the next page. In the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha is here, just the next page. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. We ask for hidayah, ihdina, and Allah says هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, guidance for people of taqwa. What is the guidance? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَاب, that book, the Quran. لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, there's no doubt in it. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, guidance for people of taqwa. We ask for guidance, and Allah said the guidance is in this book, in the Quran. So for us to benefit from the guidance of the Quran, we need to understand what we are reading. And then again, you might say that, but then I'm not an Arab. If Allah wanted me to understand the Quran, He will probably make me an Arab. Again, that's not an excuse. The more you struggle, the more difficult you find the Quran, the more reward that you get. Rasulullah ﷺ said, remember, فَلَهُ أَجْرًا. You get double the reward because you are studying something that is not native to you. You find it difficult. Allah honors that effort that you put in. Allah is the only teacher that rewards you for your effort. Most other teachers, you go to any school in the world, if you fail your exams, that's it. You can't just go to the teacher, teacher, I actually put in so and so hours to study, so and so hours to actually do my revision and my notes here, but I just couldn't pass the exam. And the teachers generally don't care, but your effort is what you do at home, and we see what's on paper. But with Allah Azza wa Jal, your effort is counted. When you find it more difficult, Allah will reward you more for it. So if you find studying the Quran difficult, don't give up. Push through, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised that you get double the reward from those who do not struggle. So we need to understand what we are reading. We need to and go beyond just reading. Once you have understood those simple meanings from studying Surah Al-Baqarah, and keep on studying. Maybe a little bit of grammar. Read some Tafsir. And enroll in classes that teaches you Tafsir. Because then the next step, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Prophet ﷺ taught us the kitab, what is the content of the Quran, and also hikmah, the wisdom. Now the wisdom of the Quran cannot be seen by just a simple glance for reading. You need to see the context, why it was revealed. Because the hikmah, according to Imam Malik, when he was asked what is hikmah, he said this is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see the wisdom of Quran when you put it into practice, but through the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in order to do that, you need to go through the Tafsir books. You need to understand the Quran as it was practiced and understood by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Because words can have multiple meanings. Words can have multiple application in real life. So in order for you to see the best application of the ayah of the Quran, the hikmah, the wisdom of it, you need to go back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You need to go back to the companions. And the Sahaba, they used to say, كنا نعلم أولادنا مغازي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كما نعلمهم سورة من القرآن. We used to teach our children the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam like we teach them as if it's once a surah from the Quran. So we need to learn and know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in order to fully understand the Quran. And when we have learned and we put the Quran into practice, then we will see the wisdom behind those commandments of the Quran. And finally, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and to purify them. Quran is also a means to purify our hearts, purification of the heart. Quran is not just something that we read and we forget about it. We put it into action, and when we put it into action, it will purify our hearts and our actions. But when Allah answers the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam is for a messenger that will recite the Quran, teach its content and its wisdom, and also purify the heart. So that's the arrangement. When Allah answered the dua, Allah says, كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا مِنْكُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِنَا. That the Prophet will recite the ayah and وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ, and purify you, and then teach you the content, and then the hikmah. So it is the arrangement is different now. Instead of purification at the end, purification is number 2. Recite, purify, learn, action. Why is there a change in arrangement? Because in order for you to reap full benefit of the Quran, to understand the Quran, you need to come to the Quran with a pure heart, with a clean heart. And this we see, this is one of the beauty of the first ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. What's the first ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah? Alif Lam Mim. What's the meaning of Alif Lam Mim? Allahu a'lamu bi muradiha. Allah knows its intention. You'll find Mufassirin, even from the time of the Sahaba, trying to understand the hikmah, the benefit that is there behind this harf al-muqatta'at, disjointed letters. We don't know exactly what the meaning is, but you find some of the Mufassirin, even from among Sahaba, who say that this is probably the summary of the surah. Alif Lam Mim, and probably the summary of Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim of Ali Imran is the summary of Ali Imran. But one of the tafsir that I like, and I think hits me most in the heart, when Shaykh Mutawalli Sha'rawi said that one of the benefit of Alif Lam Mim is that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, Surah Al-Baqarah was one of the first first surah that was revealed in Medina. And in Medina, he came into contact with Ahlul Kitab, the Jews. And Ahlul Kitab, they are known as Ahlul Kitab, the people that they know how to read and they know how to write. And they had books, they study, they've got scholars. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is ummi, he doesn't know how to read and he doesn't write. So when he arrived in Medina and he started reciting Alif Lam Mim, the Jews were startled. They're like, hang on, I thought this guy doesn't know how to read and write. What's he doing with alphabets? If you meet anybody who doesn't know how to read and doesn't know how to write, you will not know A, B, C, D, because you learn words, you don't learn alphabets. The only reason why you learn alphabets is for you to learn how to read and write. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't know how to read and doesn't know how to write. And what is he doing with alphabets? So it attracted the attention of the Jews. It is also a challenge to them, saying that you think you're so great that you know alphabets. Now these are the same alphabets, Alif, Lam, Mim. These alphabets you know. Now use that alphabets and create your Quran. And it's also a challenge. If you can't dissect, you can't understand what Alif, Lam, Mim means, these are words, these are letters that we are all familiar with. But if we can't even understand, comprehend what is the meaning behind these alphabets, then we should realize that our knowledge is not complete. There are things that we don't know. There are things that we just cannot comprehend. There are things that our mind just cannot and does not have the ability to understand. So we should come and approach the Qur'an with humility. We come and approach the Qur'an with humility and you will get guidance. You should not approach the Qur'an with arrogance. The Chinese, they have a saying that a full cup, you cannot benefit from more water. So if you come to the Qur'an thinking that I know everything, I already know everything, then the Qur'an will not benefit. But if you come to the Qur'an with humility, that even simple things, alif, lam, mim, what is this? Allahu A'lam, I don't know this. So the first thing that Allah teaches us, approach the Qur'an is, Wallahu a'lamu bi muradiha, that Allah knows best. When you have that approach to the Qur'an, then you will come to the Qur'an and you will get guidance from it. But if your approach to the Qur'an is, I'll probably just want to investigate, see what's great about this book. 1.6 billion people seems to be talking about it. Maybe let's take a look at it. And this is why Allah says, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. This is ayah 20 something in Surah Al-Baqarah, still in the first juz. يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. That this Qur'an, it's this very same Qur'an, Allah said Allah led astray. People are led astray by the Qur'an in numbers, in big numbers. وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. And people are also guided through the Qur'an in big numbers. So some people will read the Qur'an and Qur'an will lead them further from Allah Azza wa Jal. And some people will read Qur'an and Qur'an will guide them closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah says, وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. And those who are led astray, who are misguided by the Qur'an, إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ, are those who are inherently corrupt. So if you approach the Qur'an with a corrupt heart, you study the Qur'an with a corrupt heart, you come to the Qur'an with arrogance, with wrong intentions, then you will not benefit from the Qur'an. This is why Allah changed the arrangement. Allah says, كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا, the verse is يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ, to recite, tilawah. And then يُزَكِّيكُم, to purify your heart. Because Qur'an, when you make it as a practice, you recite daily. Some ayahs you recite in the morning, adhkar that are taught by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the morning and evenings, contains a lot of Quranic ayah. When you recite the Qur'an, even without understanding, there is barakah from it and you will get purification, the benefits of purification. But when you understand it, this is where it becomes transformative. It will transform you. And we see the Sahaba. We see the Sahaba, how from people who are unlettered, people who don't know anything, who the world forgotten about them. You know, Michael H. Hart, he wrote the 100 most influential people in history and put Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as number one most influential person in history. And was asked why and the reason of choosing. In one of his statements, in his book, he said, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the camels in the deserts of Arabia and placed them in the thrones of Caesar. From camels, people don't care about the Arabs. You know, this land of Arabia, the Hijaz land, is basically pretty much ignored. You have the Romans and the Persians fighting, but nobody bothers to conquer Arabia. They try, because to them, there's nothing there. In fact, when Sahaba went to Persia to preach the message of da'wah of Islam to Persia, the Rustam at that time, he was just laughing at the Sahaba. Who are you, children? Take some money, go home, that's it. Because they don't know who the Arabs are. Just within a short period of time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam transformed the Sahaba and transformed the world by extension. Because in a very short time, Rome and Persia, this were the biggest superpower of that day, fell under the hands of the Muslims. Why? The Sahaba were transformed by the Qur'an, the relationship with the Qur'an. And just now, while having breakfast, we were talking about, with brothers, we were talking about Qur'an memorization. We tend to want our children to memorize the Qur'an. We want them to become hafiz, because we want to wear the crown of, But what about us? Why force it on our children when we don't bother to memorize the Qur'an? We'll say that, I'm too old to memorize the Qur'an, excuses. If you want your children to memorize together with them. When they see you do it, then they'll become more motivated. And the Qur'an is not just something you force your children to memorize, and then that's it. Alhamdulillah, they're hafiz. I'm guaranteed my place in Jannah. And you leave them at that because you don't continue to establish a proper relationship with the Qur'an. The Qur'an to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba is not just a book that they recite. Surah Furqan, the Quraysh asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why wasn't the Quran revealed jumlatan wahida? It's just one book. Why was it revealed at intervals? That during certain events it's revealed. Because then the relationship of the Quran, the Sahaba and the Quran is different. Because it's not one single book that they read. But when they have a problem, Allah sent down a revelation. So it's relevant to their lives. When they have a problem with Sayyidina Aisha, about the fitna of Sayyidina Aisha, Allah sent down Surah An-Nur. And when they don't know what to give in infaq, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ, they ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what is it that we should give in charity, to charity? Then Allah revealed a Quranic ayah to answer that. When they just took bay'ah from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, bay'atul ridwan, they pledged allegiance to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at a very difficult stage, Allah sent them Surah Al-Fath. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina, we have given you clear victory. So the Quran to the Sahaba is something that is living, something that is relevant to their lives. And this is how we should approach the Quran. The Quran is relevant in our lives. Everything that we see, we reflect back on the Quran. Quran should not be restricted to the book and only in masajid and Quran classes. It should be our guidance in life. Every step that we take, we make a reflection of the Quran. Then we will see that the Quran is relevant to us. In one athar, it's not as weak, it's not as da'if, but it's being used by scholars for generations in guiding Quranic study. It's not halal or haram, it's just guiding Quranic study. When one of the tabi'een came to Sayyidina Ali and asked Sayyidina Ali to learn the Quran, Ali radiallahu anhu taught him Quran and taught him only 5 ayah. And then he said, I can take more, I can learn more. And Ali radiallahu anhu said, Man hafza al-Quran khamsan la yansa. Those who memorize the Quran other 5 ayats or 5 lines, he will never forget it. So take a little bit, 5 lines, 5 ayah a day, but make sure you study it thoroughly, understand its meaning, you put it into practice. And you see the Quran today, the Quran that is printed, the Medina print, not the Indo-Pakistan print, the Medina print, you will find that each page has 15 lines. This was written by Mullah Ali Qari. Mullah Ali Qari is a great Hanafi scholar and also a Khattat. He writes one Quran every single year. I think he lived in about 900 Hijrah or so. So he was the first person to write the Quran, and based on that athar, the teaching of Sayyidina Ali, 5 in 5 fives. So he divided each page into 15 lines. And at the beginning of every page is the beginning of an ayah, at the end of every page is an end of one ayah. So it's easy if you want to study the Quran, you just take 5 lines, you commit it to memory, memorize it, and then move on to the next 5 lines. So every page is 3 lessons of the Quran. So memorizing the Quran is not just about who can memorize the fastest. It's also about the quality of your memorization and the quality of your understanding and your relationship with the Quran. And this is why one of the Sahaba, he lived in Kufa. He was already very old at that time. Mas'ud, if I'm not mistaken, very old age at that time. And he was teaching the tabi'een in a big gathering. This is a great Sahaba teaching. And he said on that day, Khatam al-Quran, I have finally made Khatam of the Quran. And the tabi'een, they're wondering, really? This guy, the great Sahabi, only today in his 80s or 90s made Khatam of the Quran. We are the tabi'een and we make Khatam once a week. Sometimes every 3 days we Khatam the Quran, and this guy, this great Sahaba, Khatam the Quran after 80, 90 years. And they asked, really, you just Khatam the Quran today? He said, Khatam to bil af'al. I completed the Quran through my practice. Because to the Sahaba, finishing the Quran in reading alone is nothing great. It's great, it's an achievement when you put every commandment of the Quran into practice. And he said, it is today, finally I get to practice one commandment of the Quran that I have never been allowed by Allah to practice it. It is this ayah in Surah Nur, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا, that when you go to someone's house, and the person, you give salam and you ask for permission, can I come in? And the person says, no, go home. So Quran says, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا. The owner tells you to go home, you go home. And the Sahaba said, today, finally, when I went to someone's house, that person, I asked for permission to go in, and the person said, no, go home. And I said, I go home. You know, the Sahaba, nobody in their right mind would actually, if you live today, a Sahaba knocks on your door, you won't tell him to go home. But finally, the Sahaba, he wasn't angry at that person. He said, Alhamdulillah. finally someone gave me the opportunity to put this ayah into practice. And today I made khatam of the Qur'an. And that puts us on a different scale altogether. You know? We are proud that, alhamdulillah, I made khatam in the Quran during Ramadan. And probably not so much, because we actually made khatam by listening to the Imam reciting. And that even while we're thinking about our assignment at home and all those things. And alhamdulillah, I made khatam this year in Ramadan. But the Sahaba, to them, khatam means it is about understanding and putting the Quran into practice. Because the Quran is not just something that we recite and we recite beautifully. That is part of what we're supposed to do with the Quran. Read it beautifully. But more importantly, after you read, what do you do with it? Because we don't want to be among the people that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and complain to Allah Azza wa Jal. Because remember, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will become a witness for or against us. وَلِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. That the Prophet will become a witness for or against us. Either Rasulullah will testify, yes, Ya Allah, this person, his act and his deeds is in conformance with what I have taught, the sunnah, my sunnah. Or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will come before Allah Azza wa Jal and testify against us. Ya Rabb, oh my Master, inna qawmi ittakhadhu hadha al-Qur'ana mahjura. My people have taken this Qur'an and abandoned it. And the structure of this ayah is beautiful. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not complain to Allah that my people abandoned the Qur'an. No. My people has taken the Qur'an. Takhadul Qur'an, we have taken the Qur'an and we abandoned it. We have studied the Qur'an, we know how to read it, we ignore its practices. We know how to read the Qur'an, but we don't bother about its meaning. We purchase the Qur'an and we frame it beautifully at home, don't bother reading it. We put it on the highest shelf out of respect and never bother picking it up to read it. And on the day of judgment, if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were to stand against us, who is going to stand for us? If the persecutor is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the day of judgment, then who is going to be the defense counsel on our behalf? Nobody would want to stand against in that position. So remember our relationship with the Quran, and I was told that this is the beginning of Iqra Center doing this. It's supposed to be a tadarrus. Every week you're meeting and reciting some Quran. Recite. You don't have to recite that much. Spend some time reciting and some time also to reading what is the meaning and tafsir of the Quran. And Indonesians, you have no excuse. You guys got great mufassirin. Hamka, just take tafsir of Hamka and read it while you're reading the Quran. Read through the tafsir of Hamka while you're reading the Quran. I mean, I've got an excuse. Malaysians, we have never produced a mufassir the caliber of Hamka, But you guys. So, I'm supposed to do summary of just one, but I'm doing somebody probably more on the relationship with the Quran, because we ended up not reciting just one. Yeah. But I think I will stop here at this point, and I will open if there are any questions from the floor. I thought I could escape. No, Jalil is here, so.
Not question, suggestion.
Yeah. Now, if we look into the early parts of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah divided human beings into three categories. And what was recited by our brother Hisham just now was the first category are the people of taqwa. And then Allah spent 4 ayah in describing the people of taqwa. And then 2 ayah in describing the people of the kafir, those non-believers. And then a long discussion about the munafiqeen, the hypocrites. Now, this series of ayah is a checklist for us. It's not a checklist for us to use against someone else. We're supposed to recite it, and the Quran is a reflection on our behavior. It's supposed to transform ourselves. It's not when you read the Quran, you make it into a checklist, especially Surah Al-Baqarah and the Munafiqeen, and you go around and you look at your brother, ayah number 9, this guy, check. Ayah number 10, check. This guy is a Munafiq. Because when the Sahaba, they read the Quran is for them to transform themselves. Right? They give you one example. In Surah Al-Hujurat, when the ayah, لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي, do not raise your voice higher than the voice of the Prophet. And this ayah was revealed for Abu Bakr and Umar, because they were they had a discussion when Rasulullah ﷺ was present among them. And the discussion became a bit heated and turned into an argument, and they started raising their voice. They weren't raising their voices to Rasulullah, they were raising their voices to each other. And Allah then revealed this ayah, لَا تَرْفَعُوا أَصْوَاتَكُمْ فَوْقَ صَوْتِ النَّبِيِّ. Do not raise your voice higher than the voice of the Prophet. So if the Prophet is among you, you should not be raising your voice. And the ayah was revealed, the asbabun nuzul, the reason of revelation is to this, to Sahaba. Yet, there's one Sahaba whose voice is naturally loud. He wasn't present in the masjid for a few days after the revelation of that ayah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of his sunnah is after he's performed his prayers, he will turn around and look at the Sahaba. And you see most Imams would do that. Because he would then analyze who is at the masjid, who's not there. This is his concern for his community, knowing what's going on. Then he will ask, one day after a few days of seeing the Sahaba in the prayer, he asked the community, where's this person? And they say, oh, he's at home. And he said that he's not coming because his voice is loud and there is no way he could tone it down lower than the voice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you see, when Sahaba read this ayah, heard about this ayah, they weren't saying, that's about Abu Bakr and Umar. That has nothing to do with me. They immediately reflected on themselves. So when you read about the ayah characteristics of people of taqwa, yuqimuna as-salat, you aspire to do that. And when you read about the people, the kafirin and the munafiqeen, these are traits that you're not supposed to go around and accuse others. You're supposed to reflect on yourself. Do we have these traits? Do we have this when people say that لَا تُسِيدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, when people say don't spread corruption and you deny it, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ, is it easy for you to accept criticism from people? Or is it when people criticize you, you immediately become defensive? You immediately say that, no, I didn't do that. No, that's not wrong. Or do you analyze that criticism? If it has some value to it, then you should improve yourself. And then after Allah explained about the three different types of human beings, Allah then described to us in short about three different creatures that Allah has created. That Allah given them the mental rational capacity, the capacity to reason. There are three creatures that Allah gave the capacity to reason. The first one is the angels. And the second one is human beings. And the third one is Iblis. Iblis, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah explained about this three creatures. And creature one, the angels. These are creatures that can reason, but they are not given the freedom of choice. They will always have to submit and obey Allah Azza wa Jal. But they reason, they ask questions. When Allah told them, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, I'm going to create on earth a Khalifa. And they ask Allah, are you going to create on earth someone that is going to spread corruption and going to spill blood? So it's not wrong for you to ask questions, because even angels ask questions. We need to understand our religion. We need to arrive to faith through reason. We can't force, especially if you live in Australia today, when you want to pass your faith to your children, religion to your children, you want to ensure them to growing up as Muslims. You need to reason with them. You need to justify. You need to explain to them. You can't just force. Think that, this is how it is. It's haram. That's it. And they ask, why is it haram? Because my father says it's haram. Why did your father say it's haram? But his father says it's haram. Why did his grandfather say it's haram? That's it. No question asked. If you ask, you go to hell. You go to hell. But the angels asked, and Allah entertained the question. But not only Allah answered the question. Allah says, "Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamu." I know what you don't know. But then Allah went on to show to the angels why Allah created Adam alayhi salam. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, and Allah taught Adam the name of things. And then the second creature is Adam alayhi salam, human beings. And the third creature is Iblis. And these two creatures, we are given the capacity to reason, and also we're given the freedom of choice. And in this ayah, these two creatures, both of them had shared one similarity, that both creatures disobeyed Allah. When Iblis, he was instructed to make sujood to Adam alayhi salam, he refused. Aba was takbara. He refused and istikbar, and he was proud in his disobedience. Aba was takbara wa kana min al-kafirin. He was proud in his disobedience. He was proud of his sins. And then Adam alayhi salam, he was asked, وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ, and you and your wife don't come near this tree. But then فَأَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ both of them were tricked by shaitan, by Iblis. They went near the tree, and then they were asked to leave Jannah. They were asked to leave paradise. So both of them actually made the mistake, made the error of disobeying Allah. Yet one is condemned forever, and another one is given salvation. The difference is Iblis made the sin out of pride, out of arrogance, and he is proud of his sin. Adam alayhi salam, immediately after he was sent down to earth, Allah taught him the kalima of tawbah. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ رَبُّ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. He was taught the kalima of tawbah, and he made tawbah. And the kalima of tawbah, the dua of tawbah that Adam alayhi salam was taught by Allah Azza wa Jal is beautiful. He said, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Oh our Master, we have wronged ourselves. وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا. If you do not forgive us, وَتَرْحَمْنَا, and have mercy on us, لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, we will be among the losers. And you notice in this dua, Adam alayhi salam never once blamed shaitan. Even though it was shaitan that was advising them and was tricking both of them, in the dua of Adam alayhi salam, he took responsibility. It was my mistake. And because it's my mistake, oh Allah, forgive me. But Iblis, he made the mistake, but he did not want to admit his mistake. In Surah Al-A'raf, he blamed Allah. He blamed Allah. He said, oh Allah, it's because of you that I am led astray. He's trying to find blames from somebody else. So the difference between followers or children of Adam and probably followers of Iblis is when you make a mistake, Adam alayhi salam would man up, stand up, and yes, this is my mistake and I'm going to correct it. But Iblis is going to point fingers all around and find everybody else that who he can blame. And then he said, and then he told Allah in Surah Al-A'raf before, and he promised Allah, he said he was going to lead everybody, children of Adam, astray. So Iblis, when he makes a mistake, he's proud of it. He's not bothered to apologize. He finds others to blame, and he will find friends together. Let's go to Jahannam together. Let's do all the sins together. Let's do mistakes together. And this is the characteristic of Iblis. He doesn't, and the characteristic of Iblis, interestingly, is not just for Iblis. Because you see the followers of Iblis are called Shaitan. And Shaitan, you will find in the Qur'an, it is not a creature. When we recite Surah An-Nas, we ask for Allah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِالنَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. From the evil of, we ask for protection from the evil of Khannas. And Al-Khannas is the name of Shaitan. And who is this? مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. From among the jinns and human beings. So we know from this ayah that Shaitan can be either jinn, unseen, or from among the human beings. So you can see the description just now that I described, the characteristics of Iblis. If you do that, then you may be part-time shaitan, full-time engineer, but part-time shaitan, because it's a job description. If you do what shaitan does, you do what Iblis does, then without realizing, you've actually filled the job description of what shaitan is doing. So Adam alayhi salam, because all sons of Adam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, كُلُّ ابْنُ آدَمْ خَطَّاءٌ وَخَيْرُ خَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. All sons of Adam will make mistakes, will be making sins. وَخَيْرُ خَطَّائِينَ. And the best of those who sin are tawwabun, those who turn to Allah, who makes tawbah. So the characteristic of Adam alayhi salam, and what makes him great, and what makes him the Khalifa, is he is responsible for his own mistakes. The moment we make mistake, وَإِذَا ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهِ. Allah describes people of taqwa in Surah Al-Imran. The moment they make mistake, or they wrong themselves, ذَكَرُوا اللَّهِ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. They turn to Allah, they remember Allah, and they ask for forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jalla. And they won't start blaming others. There are people who's going to blame in Yawm al-Akhirah. They're going to blame everybody. They're going to start pointing fingers before Allah Azza wa Jalla, and they're even going to blame shaitan. They're going to say, no, it wasn't me, it was shaitan that was telling me to do this. And shaitan is going to defend himself. Shaitan before Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to say, مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. I did not have any power over you. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. Except that I called, I advised you, you followed. I just suggested. It was you who did it. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't blame me, blame yourself. And in other parts, Shaitan says, إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ, I am afraid of Allah. You're not afraid of Allah, that's your problem. I'm afraid of Allah. You were the one who were not afraid of Allah, and you were the one who sinned. I just suggested. So you see, we have to, as children of Adam, we have to stand up for our own mistakes. We have to take responsibility and make tawbah. Admit that yes, it was a mistake, and make tawbah. And then after Allah talking about these people, human beings, creatures, Allah talked about nations. Allah talked about Bani Israel, and Allah spent a long passage about Banu Israel and the crimes and the sins that Banu Israel did. And this is the best part. We love reading this, and we say this is why Israel is Israel. The reason Allah revealed that is because we share a lot of characteristics like Banu Israel. We share, and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his mission is very closely resembles the mission of Musa alayhi salam. And the Qur'an talks about Musa alayhi salam and his people a lot. And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Qur'an kulluhu Musa. It's almost the whole Qur'an is talking about Musa. The reason is because there's a lot of lessons that we should learn from the Israelites. The Israelites, they were given revelation. They were given a book, and they were given Sharia, and they were given preference. Inni faddaltukum ala al-alamin, and I preferred you. Allah says, I chose you over all nations. We read about this, we know that, these are the chosen nation, and they did this sin, and Allah destroyed them, and Allah this and that, and we say that, no wonder they're there. But we forgot that. Why we are reading that? Because there's so many similarities. We are repeating the same sins that the previous nations are doing. And one of the things is that they've been given a book. They've been given a kitab. But then Allah says, وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا أَمَانِيَ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ. This is somewhere still in the first juz, in the 70s or 80s ayah. They said, from among them, from the ummiyun, they are unlettered. They are blind about the Qur'an, but about their book. Ummiyun la ya'lamun al-kitab. They don't know anything about their book, illa amani wa innahum illa yadhunnun, except for wishful thinking and guesstimates, guesswork. They have no idea what their book is talking about. They just, amani. They wish maybe Allah is talking about this. So I think Allah spoke about this somewhere in the book. Sounds very similar to us today. We read the Quran. When Ibn Abbas was asked about the word amani, what does amani? He said they preserve its recitation, they memorize its letters, but they don't know what it means. And we do that. We read that. We read the Quran, we memorize the Quran, we don't bother about its meaning. Again, we are repeating the same mistakes that our previous nations are doing. And we don't do anything, we don't live up to the Quran, yet we feel proud that, I'm a Muslim, alhamdulillah, Allah has chosen me to be a Muslim. Why is that something that we should be proud of? We were born Muslims. Are we living up to the name of Islam? Just like the Israelites, they're proud. فَضَّلْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ, I've been chosen over all nations. That's it. Khalas. I am great because of my birthright. And we're doing that, something similar to the previous nation. I am, alhamdulillah, a Muslim by birthright. That's it. I'm going to Jannah anyway. I may be burning hellfire for a bit, for a few thousand years, and then I'm going to Jannah anyway at the end of the day. And this, we are not the first to say that. Allah says the previous nation, Israelites, said that, وَقَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودًا. They say that we will not enter hellfire except for a few days. We are repeating exactly the same sins like the Israelites. And the reason why Allah asks us to read is that so that you don't do the same mistake. And then Allah moved the discussion after Israel, and Allah talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam and his children and also his grandchildren. And Ibrahim alayhi salam is set as an example. You have the nations that failed, you have the angels, and then you have Adam and Iblis. Angels, there's no failure or success because they will always have to obey Allah Azza wa Jalla. Human beings and Iblis, when they're given the choice, chances are they're going to make mistakes. But when you make mistake, the difference whether you succeed or you fail is what you do after that. How you react to those mistakes. So, if you want to succeed, take responsibility, amend your mistakes. If you don't want to succeed, blame everybody else. And then Allah talks about a nation that has been given the Sharia and repeatedly failed. And then Allah moved the discussion to a human being that succeeded, which is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah says, Ibrahim alayhi salam, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. When Allah told him to submit, he said, I submit to the Master of the universe. Acts of submission. Allah said, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. Allah tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with a series of tests, and he aced all of them. He completed all of them. At a very young age, he had to go against his people in his village, against his uncle of his father figure Azar, and he was chased out of his village. He was thrown into fire. Yet at every single stage, his submission to Allah Azza wa Jal remained constant. He was always in submission to Allah, and he was given the choice whether between the fire or Allah Azza wa Jal. He said, I'll jump into the fire. He was given the choice between staying comfortably with his family or obedience towards Allah Azza wa Jal and chased out of the village. He said he chose Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah says then, أَنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah then says, قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. That I am going to make you as leader among mankind. Allah has given him this certificate of passing. You know, everybody, all of us, when we do our ibadah, we do our prayers, we do any act of worship, we pray for Allah to accept our acts and deeds. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, not only Allah accepted, Allah gave him a certificate of acceptance. إِنِّي جَعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I'm going to make you leader among mankind. That's it. All your good deeds have been accepted. And if anybody is going to rest on his laurels, can rest on his laurels, it's going to be Ibrahim. Because Allah has told him, you have passed the test. And here's your certificate to prove that you have passed the test. You're going to Jannah. But immediately after that, his worry shifts to his future generation. قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. What about my children and their children, my dhurriyyah, my progenies? He said, this is the worry of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we should also emulate this, learn from this, especially when we're living here as minority. What is going to happen to the religion, to the iman, to the deen of our children? Are they going to remain Muslims? And Ibrahim alayhi salam, and even Yaqub, Ibrahim alayhi salam had children who are prophets, Ismail and Ishaq. And he reminded their children, وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ وَبَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ يَا بَنِيَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى لَكُمُ الدِّينَ. He reminded the children, oh children, Allah has selected for you a religion. فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't die unless you die as Muslims. When was the last time we remind our children about this? That Allah has selected a religion for you, and you have to live and die as Muslims. And our children are definitely not prophets. Yet Ibrahim alayhi salam, having prophets as children, kept on reminding this. Yaqub alayhi salam, on his deathbed, and kuntum shuhada'a idh hadara Yaqub al-maut. Aren't you witnesses? Don't you know the story of Yaqub? When he was on his deathbed, he asked his children, مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن بَعْدِي. What are you going to worship after me? The concern is always what's going to happen to the future, what's going to happen to the next generation. مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن بَعْدِي. Why are you worshipping after me? And they said, نَعْبُدُ إِلَهَكَ وَإِلَهَ أَبَائِكَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ إِلَهًا wahida. That we're going to worship your Lord, the Lord of Ibrahim, Lord of Ismail and Ishaq, the one true God, ilahan wahida. So this is the primary concern of the prophets, and Allah mentioned this. These are the examples of successful people, and the concern is about the religious, spiritual well-being of the children. Are they going to be Muslims? And how did Ibrahim a.s. make sure that his children remain Muslims? One of the things is that he made continuous dua. وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. One of the dua of Ibrahim. And protect me and my children from worshipping asnam, the idols. But he also goes beyond not just making dua, he makes act of worship, ibadah, and a family activity. When he was instructed to build the Kaaba, he built the Kaaba with Ismail. وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ. He made it a family activity. So when you want to worship, when you want to pray, make it a family activity. Pray together as a family. You study the Qur'an, study together as a family. Read it together. You know, as parents, you shouldn't be telling your children, okay, Muhammad, it's time for Maghrib. Go and pray Maghrib. Well, we are still on Facebook now. Then Muhammad has taken wudu, performed his Maghrib, and he goes out and see father still on his kitab, Facebook. It's still kitab on book. So if you want your children to become Muslims, we should practice Islam together. Make it a family activity. And then finally Allah ends use one, and Allah asks, تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ. These are nations that have passed. لَهَا مَا كَسَبَتْ وَلَكُمْ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. For them, what they have worked, they will earn what they have worked for, and we will earn what we have worked for. When we read about all these previous nations, we read about Ibrahim and his children, we read about the Israelites. It's not about for us to be admiring Ibrahim alayhi salam and his children and saying that, oh, those were great people. I don't think I can do that. No, those are those people. Allah says they will get the reward, and we will get our reward. And when we read about Israelites, we go like, those Israelites, they're going to hell. They're going to hell. I'm alright. I'm a Muslim. Allah said their problem is their problem. Our problem is our problem. Focus on our problem. When we read the Quran, it's about changing ourselves, transforming ourselves into becoming better Muslims. I think that's a short summary of Juz 1, and that's the end of Juz 1. Hope that summarizes.
Can I memorize and reading every day?
Now the first 5 ayah explains the description, characteristics of people of taqwa, and then the Ayatul Kursi, that's the greatest ayah in the Quran. To do Ayatul Kursi, then we can't go home. It's going to take a long time. And the last 3 ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, the last 2 actually, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's a special ayah because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the ayah during Isra wal Mi'raj. And all of Quran is received through Jibreel alayhi salam. But these 2 ayah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was invited and received this ayah directly from Allah Azza wa Jal when he was just beyond Sidratul Muntaha, at the point where even Jibreel couldn't follow him. He was gifted with that last 2 ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, those who recite those 2 ayah fi laylatin, at night before you go to sleep, kafata, it will be sufficient for you. And scholars, when explaining what this kafata means, there are different interpretations, but one of it is that if you have intended to wake up for tahajjud that night, but you miss waking up for tahajjud, and you recite those 2 ayah before waking up, before you go to sleep, then you'll be receiving the reward as if you actually woke up and prayed tahajjud. But the key word here is intention, that you intend to wake up. It's not like, tahajjud, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're still on YouTube, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to wake up for tahajjud at 3 o'clock. I'm going to recite those 2 ayah, and don't even bother to set alarm, because it will be sufficient for me. So as long as you truly intend, and your effort shows your intention, that you prepare, you sleep early, but then just for some reason you couldn't wake up, those 2 ayah will be sufficient. And you look at those last 3 ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, it's beautiful because it summarizes all of our deen, from the concept of Islam and Iman and Ihsan within those concept of those 3 ayahs. So it's as if every night before we go to sleep, we affirm our Islam, our Iman, and our Ihsan. We study, we revise our religion every single night before we go to sleep. But that's going to be a long answer if I'm going to go detail into it. But I think that will suffice the answer for now. Those are very important ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah, which I think most of us would have memorized. Look into the Tafsir. You'll find, especially the last 2 ayah of Al-Baqarah, it's really beautiful, because it talks about our Iman, and it talks about our Islam, and it talks about it ends with dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes. Very good question. Don't ask too many questions. Alright, now there are 2 different ways of asking. The first one is you ask, and the second one, first one is asking a question, the second one is questioning. So when you ask a question to gain understanding, then it is okay. It is encouraged, because you see, Quran talks about questions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam received. Those yas'alunaka. So the Sahaba asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the question is to gain understanding, to facilitate practice. With Banu Israel, they asked questions. But when Musa alayhi salam, he was addressing his people, he says, "Lima tu'dunani?" Why are you hurting me? Because to Musa alayhi salam, it wasn't a question, it was more of like an insult questioning. Because what happens? Now, how does Musa alayhi salam receive revelation from Allah Azza wa Jal? He has to go climb up a mountain.
Go ahead to
So I think it will take about I went up the mountain twice in my life, so it took me about 3-4 hours up and down, climbing up and climbing down. And I was young, 17 or 18 back then, so my feet is not. This was like 25 kilos ago. It took me 3-4 hours to climb up and down. So Musa alayhi salam, he was approached by his people, said that there is a murder that happened, and then give us a solution. He has to go out, and then Allah says, "An tadbahu baqara." You have to slaughter a cow. So he goes down, "An tadbahu baqara." You have to slaughter a cow. And then what was the response of Banu Israel? They said, "Qalu atattakhiduna huzwa?" Is this a joke? Are you serious? We ask you to solve a murder, and you ask us to slaughter a cow. Now, if anybody were to say that, if let's say I come to Mahruza, say Mahruza, I've got a problem, so this is a brother here, say I've got a problem, let's say, I've got a flat tire, can you help me? He said, yes, go and slaughter a cow. I can ask him, are you joking? Are you serious? But then, because he's not Musa, but the Israelites, they traveled with Musa alayhi salam. They saw the sea parted for Musa alayhi salam. They were served with manna and salwa because of the mu'jiza of Musa alayhi salam. They have seen miracles from Musa alayhi salam. There is no reason for them not to have faith in Musa. Yet when Musa told them, they came to Musa and complained to them that this is the problem, there's a murder, so give us a solution. He says, go and slaughter a cow. He said, are you serious? Are you joking? And Musa alayhi salam says, I seek the protection of Allah from being among the jahil. And then they ask, go and ask your Lord more details about this cow. And what does Musa need to do? Climb up, climb down, and give some description. And then what did the people say? Hey, go ask your Lord again, what's the color? Again, go up, go down. Its color is yellow, darkish a little bit. It's fine, it's easy to see. Still, go ask your Lord again, give us more details. So you see, the question is not to facilitate practice. It's just to humiliate Musa alayhi salam. It's sort of bullying him like, you go and ask your Lord. Who is Musa alayhi salam and who is the Israelites? They're treating Musa alayhi salam just like their servant. So that is why Allah criticized them heavily in this passage. And different, compare that to the angels. They were asking to facilitate understanding. You can ask to clarify your understanding, to firm your iman. Because even Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's a person of great iman. And he asked Allah Azza wa Jal, قَالَ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Oh Master, show me how you bring back the dead back to life. Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah says, قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ. Don't you have iman? قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. Indeed, of course I have iman, but this is just to calm my heart. That we shouldn't make, this is the dua for Ibrahim alayhi salam. The iman that is expected of Ibrahim alayhi salam is different from us. We are not expected to jump into fire. We are not expected to slaughter our children, go through the trials of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That is why he asked those questions. The iman that's expected of us is just to wake up for Fajr and perform and stay away from certain things that are haram. It's very different from what is expected from Ibrahim alayhi salam. But Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah Azza wa Jal to facilitate his iman. So there's nothing wrong for us to ask, or for our children to ask us, why should I believe in God? Those are questions that are valid, that we should entertain. Those are metaphysical questions. That of course, there's nothing wrong. So I hope that answers your question, the difference between what is valid question and what's not a valid question. Allahu A'lam. How important is this? Now,
like the children especially.
For you to, there are two things. For you to be able to articulate it, and for you to know its point of articulation. There are certain words, certain letters that we can pronounce well. For instance, if I were to ask you how do you pronounce the word meme, almost everybody would know how to pronounce the word meme correctly. But if I were to ask you what is the articulation point of the letter meme, then you probably don't know how to explain that. Most people wouldn't know how to explain how to articulate. You just grow up with it. So there's a difference between articulating it well and knowing how to articulate it. Articulating it well is compulsory. That means if you can't, you have to learn how to do it. Reading Quran with tajweed is compulsory. If you can't, you need to continue learn how to. It's a continuous process of learning and on how to read Quran with tajweed. But knowing the tajweed, the rules of tajweed, is a communal responsibility. It's fard kifaya. Someone within the community needs to know the rules of tajweed, so that if there is a problem, you could refer to him. Then how do you recite this? How do you read this? What is idgham, for instance? So you can go to that point of reference and he can explain to you. But you need to read with idgham, even though you don't know that the name of it is called idgham. So with children, you have to teach them from the very beginning to pronounce the letter properly. But you shouldn't be stuck on just, for instance, the letter Dad. It's a difficult letter to pronounce. I mean, if that boy can't pronounce Dad, I mean, don't hold him back 3 months until he gets his Dad letter correct. And then you move him to Dad, Ta. After 3 months of every day coming 2 hours to the madrasa, Dad. Okay, now you move on to Ta. I mean, you have to use a bit of wisdom there, flexibility, that you correct it over time. Because makhraj is something that is, especially for non-Arabs, it's not really something that comes naturally. Because they've grown up 7, 8 years pronouncing it, speaking a different language. Suddenly you want to ask them to change their tongue. It's not going to happen immediately. Take your time, but have a plan on how to get there. And when it comes to articulation point, this is really interesting. You know, Quran says, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun." That Allah says that we are the one that sent down the reminder, the dhikr, wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and we are the one that is going to protect it, the protection of the Quran. This is the only book, only holy scripture that has, we can prove through evidence that it has remained unchanged since the time of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not a book that we just take on faith, saying that it is the book since the Prophet. Even through evidence, carbon dating, we found the latest Quran, it is dated during the time of the Prophet. And you can actually read it. You can actually look at it and you can actually read it. The Birmingham Quran is clearly that you can. And not only is the text preserved, that it is memorized by so many people, not only is the text preserved, the way of reciting it is also preserved. How do I say so? You know, you look at other scriptures, you look at for instance, the Bible, we look at the New Testament. What was the language that Prophet Isa, Jesus Christ, spoke? He spoke Aramaic. What was the first language the Bible was written in? Well, yeah? It was written in Greek. It wasn't written in Hebrew. The New Testament was first written in Greek. A language that Prophet...
It's true.
Yeah?
If Bible means
the whole
Old Testament and
New Testament, yeah, the New Testament.
Like Old Testament in Hebrew,
yeah,
New
true.
Testament in Aramaic.
No, New Testament was written in Greek.
No, I mean, then you talk about the origin.
Written, yeah.
No, the
Didn't speak. So anybody who knows anything about translation would know that any document that you translate will lose some of its meaning. But today we don't have the Greek Bible anymore with us. The oldest is Latin. So from Greek it was translated to Latin, and that's the only New Testament, the oldest New Testament that is in existence today. And Latin is a dead language. Nobody speaks Latin and nobody knows exactly how Latin is pronounced. For instance, the C, whether it's a soft C circle or it's a hard C like car. So the Italian will have a different pronunciation for Latin. The English will have a different pronunciation for the same Latin words. So and you don't find this in the Quran. Everybody will know how to pronounce the word kha. Although they can't pronounce it well, the points of articulation, the 16 or 17 points differing between scholars, but we all know where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his tongue when he recites an ayah of the Quran. We take the Old Testament, the Hebrew. Hebrew was also a dead language. It was only revived in the 1940s with the formation of Israel. Before that, nobody spoke Hebrew. The Jews, they spoke Yiddish, most of them. So it was a dead language. When a language dies and it's resurrected, you cannot guarantee the authenticity of its pronunciation. And this is the beauty of the Quran. And one of the genius of our scholars of the past, they actually documented not only the words and the recitation, but also the points of articulation. How do you inflect your tongue. In fact, not only where you place your tongue, but how you shape your tongue while placing it there is also documented in our books of tajweed. This is part of the miracle of the Qur'an, part of the preservation of the Qur'an that Allah has guaranteed. Allahu A'lam. Makhraj is a lifelong journey, so you shouldn't have it just because you can't pronounce one or two letters well, then you stop all your Quranic studies. You continue studying at the same time. Try and improve your makhraj. Read Quran with a teacher, Quran teacher. So every time you read, you will be corrected. So you should not be hang on just one part. That's it, just the makhraj. I can't get this letter right, so I'm not going to do anything else until I get this letter right. Don't let that stop you. It's going to be a lifelong journey. And in fact, you have great scholars who, until their 70s, until they pass away, they still can't articulate certain letters well. You can listen to their Quranic recitation, but that doesn't stop them from studying everything else.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك سبحان ربنا وسلم وبارك على السيد اجمعين. اللهم كنا في الدين احنا بالصالحين. اللهم انفعنا ما تعلمنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا انك انت العليم الحكيم. ربنا زدنا علما وارزقنا فهما وافتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن رحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون احسنه. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد الحمد لله رب العالمين.